In continuation of yesterday's theme on which Bhagavan started speaking to students and teachers in the veranda of Sai Kulwant Hall at Prashanti Nilayam, we have the following to share with pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. Greetings to all of you. I said already yesterday, Bhagavan has picked up this topic, karma or action, as a theme for his talk. And we covered part of it yesterday, and the remaining we'll have this day. Karma in English can be put this way, action. Karma also meant consequences of action. As I said yesterday, covering 3 periods of time, past, present and future. That's what we covered yesterday. And today Swami brings to our attention some more points to light. I asked a question. Swami, people speak of Vidhayaka karma and Kartavya karma. What is the difference between the two? And for your information, Vidhayaka karma is a prescribed obligations passed on to us from generation to generation. Kartavya karma is the duty we are expected to discharge. So I asked Swami, what is the difference between Vidhayaka karma, the obligations, and Kartavya karma, the duties? And Swami started replying like this. Vidhayaka karma, or the obligations which are passed on to us from generation to generation, are left to your option. You can even postpone them, such as our rituals, such as our worship. Well, these are things that are passed on to us by way of tradition, ingrained in our culture. So every country has got its own culture. And so this duty, this action based on the culture of the land is called Vidhayaka karma. While Kartavya karma is the duty that one has to necessarily perform, necessarily discharge. Now, Bhagavan gave beautiful example to drive home this point. Swami said, supposing you arranged a get-together at your home and you invited everybody. But unfortunately, you had very high temperature that evening when you were ready to host grand party to your friends. You are down with high temperature. For party, people will be arriving within an hour. What do? You immediately pick up your phone, convey your apologies. I am so sorry. I am down with very high fever. Pardon me for the inconvenience. We'll meet next time. Won't you say that? So you'll be postponing your commitment, postponing the appointment or the engagement. There is possibility for such a thing to postpone. This is what is called Vidhayaka Karma, where there is some choice. There is Kartavya Karma, the duty. Bhagavan gave an example. Supposing inspection is going on in your office. On that day, you are down with fever. All superior officers came to inspect, to check up the records. You are down with fever in the office. What are you going to do? You can't ask your officers, would you please come tomorrow? No. You cannot cancel it. What do? You go, you consult your doctor. You take immediate injection. See to it that you attend to your duty, because you cannot cancel it. You cannot postpone it. This, what Swami says, is Kartavya Karma, that what one has to necessarily do. One has to necessarily attend to those things. Then I asked Swami, yes, what? Go on. Swami, people say that I face the consequences of previous life, that I did some action in the past, in the previous life, and that I am facing the consequences today. What have you to say about it? I do not know in what mood Bhagavan is. Immediately turned to me and said, you fellow, you do not know what you have eaten 10 days ago. You don't remember what you have eaten for lunch 3 days ago. How do you remember your actions in the previous life? Why do you worry about it? Forget about it. Take care of the present. That is enough, he said it. I see. Swami, still what? You have any doubt? Yes, Swami, please. What is it? Swami, would you please enlighten me? Vritti dharma or professional duties. Professional duties. Would you please say 1 or 2 points in this? Bhagavan said, professional duties are never constant. When you change your profession, your duties also change. As a lecturer, I have the duty to teach. Tomorrow I may start business. I cannot teach there. I have to run the business. So professional duties, vritti dharma, vritti is profession. It changes. As it changes, your duties also naturally change. That's what Bhagavan has said. Swami, small doubt. What is it? Bhagavan, do not misunderstand me. My question is this. I do 10 good actions. Perhaps I might be doing 5 bad actions. 10 good actions and 5 bad actions. 10 minus 5. So I should be punished for only 5, not 10. Because I have done 10 good actions, only 5 bad actions. 10 minus 5. 5. Then Swami laughed and said, it is not balance sheet, sir. It is not balance sheet. It is not your accounts there. You will get all the good for your good actions. And you will get all the bad for your wrong actions. There is nothing like debit to credit to deductions. There is nothing like that. There are no exemptions. Nothing. Oh Bhagavan, is that so? Would you please give me one example? Then Bhagavan said, supposing you have on your hand 10 seeds of fruit bearing trees and 10 seeds of thorny bushes. 20 seeds. Come on, spread them on the ground. 10 seeds of that variety will grow into fruit bearing trees. And these 10 seeds of this variety will grow into thorny bushes. There is no question of credit and debit, no question of clash. As is the seed, so is the tree. So life is not anything like accounts. You should understand it. That's what Bhagavan said. Swami, I know it is very painful to hear that I have to suffer. But yet I do. What can I do? Yes. It is very difficult to be pakka, all proof. I am a human being. What to do? Sometimes it happens. I have got small doubt. What is? Swami, people say, if I do some worship in the temple, offer few coconuts in the temple, or offer my hair to God in Tirupati, it seems I will be given no objection certificate, NOC. It is said that I will be given a clean chit. Everything, 10 coconuts. Yes. Swami, what do you say about it? Then Swami said, from my point of view, Swami said, from my point of view, they give you only a narrow and low level of satisfaction. They cannot nullify, they cannot give you any sort of exemption, they cannot cancel the consequences of your actions. That's what Baba said. Swami, I am sorry to disturb you. In Hindu philosophy, Hindus, there are priests. If I pay some money, they will do abhishekam. You know abhishekam? Sprinkling of holy water on Sivalinga. They will worship Gayatri Mata. They will do some worship if I pay some money. Priests are there. Swami, if I get the worship done by the priest, Abhisheka done by the priest, some religious rituals done by the priest, will I be free from all my sins? That's what I said. Swami said, it will never happen. It will never happen. Swami, what do I do? So, Swami laughed and said, supposing your child, whom you love very much, sustains a fracture in the leg, can you have bandage on behalf of the child? You love your son very much. Can your son eat on your behalf? No. For your hunger, you have to eat. For your thirst, you have to drink water. For your fracture, you must put a bandage. So there is nothing like delegating power. Priest doing some ritual to give you NOC certificate. No objection certificate. There is nothing like that. That's what Bhagavan said. Swami, yes, the scriptures in Bhagavatam, it is said, there was one sage by name Suka, S-U-K-A, who helped a king by name Parikshit, Parikshit, Parikshit. And Sukha gave discourse every day to this king Parikshit. And Parikshit attained moksha or liberation at the end. Swami, what do you say about it? As I told you a number of times, he is final. He will never allow you to take the last word. No. Immediately he said, no. Sukha is a great sage, a Brahmajnani, the all-knowing person, a selfless man of deep penance. He could have a deserving disciple like Parikshit. So, he could attain liberation. You may go to a priest, but you are undeserving. You may go to a teacher. Teacher is great, but as a disciple you may be undeserving. You may not be that great. You may not be deserving the grace of a teacher. Therefore, in that case it is different. Because it is a combination of an ideal guru and an ideal disciple. That's what Baba said. Then he gave one instance from Ramayana. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. A lady was cursed to lie on the ground in the form of a stone. The name of that lady is Ahalya, for her disobedience. But she was given assurance when she was cursed that when Rama goes along the forest, when Rama steps his foot on this stone, Ahalya would come back to her womanhood. The one who was lying till then in the form of a stone, because of the curse, she would go back to her previous condition by the touch of the feet of Sri Rama. Here Swami made a comment. There should be a person of the type of Ahalya, and there should be of the standard and the capacity of Sri Rama. Then only it is possible. Not in the case of everybody. That's what Bhagavan has said. Swami, it's all right. I don't want to trouble you. You are not going to give me any kind of exemption. You are not going to cut short the consequences of my wrong actions. You said there is no balance sheet and accounts. Further, say you went on repeating that I must face wealth, I have no alternative. I can only ask this question, Bhagavan. Swami said, what is it? Is there no solution to this problem? What is the problem? That one has to face the consequences of one's own actions. We will be committing so many mistakes in life. Nobody is a foolproof. But can I not atone my sins? Atonement is also a way of getting rid of the sins. Swami, what is the solution? Then Bhagavan said, wherever there is a problem, there is a solution. The Lord slowly, compassionately descending down. Very good. Wherever there is a problem, there is a solution. When diabetes is the problem, insulin is the solution. When diabetes is the problem, some medicines, daily exercise, they are a solution to diabetes or sugar problem. Similarly, there will be a solution to your sins also. A sort of regret, repentance, and a guarantee that one would not repeat them again. And constant prayers will may lead to a situation. Or maybe a solution to this problem, to atone one's own sins. That's what Bhagavan has said. Swami, is action, karma, is it affected by the surrounding influences? My point is to find an escape out of this. He said, you must suffer, you must suffer. But I don't want to find out some means. To evade income tax, we find so many methods. Some yes. Because I can justify my wrong actions by saying I am affected by the surroundings. The surroundings made me do these bad things, or else I am a pakka saint. So what's the way? So curse the surroundings, not me. Then Baba said, no, nothing doing, nothing doing. The times and the surroundings will not have any effect on your karma and the consequences of your actions. And then Baba said, why do you put so many questions? Every fellow knows what he is doing, whether it is correct or wrong, whether it is sin or not. Every fellow knows it. And Bhagavan gave an example. When car stops, it seems indicator will indicate. Indicator will indicate when the car stops. Well, I have no car, I don't know the mechanism of it. Similarly, the mind will indicate when anyone commits any action, good or bad. You'll come to know it is a good action or bad action. All by yourself. That's what Bhagavan said. Swami, another question. What is that question? Supposing I committed a sin, I committed a mistake, will it affect me only or my whole family? Or my whole lineage? My whole pedigree? Or for coming generations also? Please watch this. Then Bhagavan said, no. One person will not be the cause for the decline and the fall of the whole lot of people belonging to the family. No. Is that so, Swami? May I put some small question? Yes. Was not Ravana responsible for the destruction of all inhabitants there in Lanka? He lost all his brothers. He lost all his children. Everybody died in the war because of Ravana's past actions. Is it not correct, Swami? You say now that one man cannot be responsible for all this. Please explain me this. Is it a question of trying to catch him? Is it a question of trying to bring out the truth? And Bhagavan is very clear about it. There is no question of mincing matters. However well I may try to get out of this, but he will never allow you to get out of it. Something like a rat trapped, that's all. It cannot go out of it. And so, oh, I see. No. All the children of Ravana, brothers of Ravana, also played their role in this wicked act of abducting Sita. His own brother Vibhishana disagreed with brother Ravana, came out. Was he not saved? If Ravana is responsible for the destruction of the whole family, Vibhishana also would have been destroyed. But Vibhishana was not destroyed. Why? He deferred and came out. Only the rest of the people were ruined because they had their own role in these evil deeds. Oh, Swami, you are always correct. Bhagavan it is said, when seeds are fried or heated, when the outer husk or covering is removed, that the seed will not germinate. Is it true? Yes. Paddy will have the husk around. With husk, if you sow, they will grow into plants. Without husk, if you put the rice, they will never grow. I think you know that. You have got rice in Russia, but you don't eat Russia. You don't eat rice, right? You eat potatoes mixing with what? Different stuff. Oh, you please serve me when I come there. I'm praying for an opportunity to come there. Not for potatoes anyway. Of course, I bring my own pickles with me. My own stuff. Swami, please explain. Supposing all my sins and the consequences of my evil deeds are burnt. Will I not be free from the consequence of these sins? He says, oh, how are you going to burn? How are you going to burn? Not with a gas stove. You have to burn in the fire of jnana or wisdom. So you have to fry them. All your actions, the sins, must be burnt in the fire of wisdom, so that you don't have to face the consequences of your actions. That is the only way. Oh, I see, Swami. So can I go for wisdom straight without action? Promotion. Why action and then wisdom? Wisdom straight. He says it's not possible. First action, karma. This will give you the experience of this karma, the awareness of the karma in the form of jnana or wisdom. That's what Bhagavan said. Finally, Swami mentioned these points full of poetry and alliterations. Karma loni marma. Marma means secret. Karma loni marma, meaning the secret of action or the significance of action. Am I clear? Marmamuloni dharmamu, the secret of dharma, the code, the conduct, will take you to Brahma, the divine. So these are the 4 words he used. Karma, action. One should know the marma, the secret of it, which happens to be the dharma, the righteousness, which will help you to experience Brahma, the divine himself. Karma, marma, dharma and Brahma. See what a beautiful coinage. Then music started. It's time for Bhagavan to go to bhajan hall. Boys are adjusting their instruments for bhajans. Swami got up. Oh, I should go. And said, I spent lot of time with you. I discussed many points with you. Boys, could you hear me? All of you, could you follow me? Because I am speaking in a low voice. Then I should have kept quiet. But it's not in my nature to keep quiet. What to do? Then I said, Swami, I am writing what all you are telling. And I will explain to everybody. Oh, when are you going to write? When are you going to make a fair copy? When are you going to edit? When are you going to tell those people? When people are hungry, you want to invite them for a dinner after 3 days. Please come for the dinner on Sunday. When they are very hungry, on Wednesday, right now. See that. So you should serve the food when they are hungry. So you should tell them when they really want to know what I am telling. What is fun of telling? I will tell tomorrow. Everybody laughed and laughed. And there ended that day's session. My friends, with that we completed 2 episodes of the month of July. As I said already, the months, July 2001, the months and all these things correlate to the Sanatana Sarthi Telugu edition that came out with my articles published covering these points here. The Telugu knowing people will be able to make out. But for information, please follow. But for information, all could not be published, A to Z, because they could not allot so many pages to me, because so many writers will be there, Bhagavan's discourses will be there. They cannot allot the whole book to me. So they will be giving me about 3 pages or 4 at the most. So they could not cover all that is given. But you, the chosen few of Baba's devotees, have the advantage of getting the whole lot of the conversation without omission, without commission, without censorship. Everything right. Now, some of the points covered in the November 2001, some of the points covered during that month. It so happened in that year 2001 November, Bhagavan as usual in the evening after interviews came out and stood in front of us and spent 1.5 hours with us, talking, conversing all the time. Really, we were extremely happy. In fact, immediately after that session, I was surrounded by many people. Anil, would you give us a printout? Would you give us the script? What did he say? Really speaking, though it is a joyful thing, though it is a delightful thing, though it is a spiritual duty, but time factor, I'm still working as a lecturer in the college. I have to prepare for my classes. I have to prepare for my Gita classes. I have to take care of publications of my books. I have to write articles to Sanatana Sarthi. And I will be talking to foreigners of different groups from different countries. So time is a factor. Or else if I am given the whole this duty only, well, I don't need anything in life. I can go on telling and sharing what all that he says. So when people ask me, can you give me the paper? What shall I say? Sir, I have written only points. It won't help you. Unless I develop into an essay, you cannot follow anything. So, I should say, that evening was almost a spiritual banquet, full of philosophy, depth and profundity. So to the extent I remember, I know, I'll try to share them with you. Bhagavan used 3 words here. So I gave the papers yesterday, all these papers. Bhagavan mentioned 3 words. One is Dehatma, second Jivatma, third Paramatma. These are 3 words that he mentioned. Dehatma, Jivatma, Paramatma. Common thing in all these 3 words is Atma. Atma means consciousness or soul or spirit or divinity or Brahman or awareness. You may call it anyway. Now, Bhagavan started explaining each one of them Deha, body, plus Atma, consciousness, is equal to Dehatma. Meaning, the body is functioning because of the Atma, the spirit. Let us not think it is the body that is acting. The hand cannot move on its own unless there is divinity. Impossible. I cannot talk unless there is divinity. So, the body is operational. The body is functional. The body is effective because of Atma or the spirit. Am I clear? So, body, Deha plus Atma is equal to Dehatma. Right? And then, Bhagavan made a mention of the second thing. Jiva. Jiva, the individual plus Atma, the soul, is Jivatma, the individual soul. Bhagavan explained clearly. Earlier in Dehatma it was only body. Now, body plus mind together with Atma is Jivatma. Am I clear? Body, mind together with Atma is Jivatma, the individual soul. Only body plus Atma is Dehatma, limited to the body. Am I clear, please? Now comes the third one, Paramatma. Param is super. Param, transcendental. Param, supreme. Param, over-pervading, all-pervasive, universal Atma. The universal consciousness is Paramatma. That's what Bhagavan has said. And Swami said, Paramatma, the universal consciousness, may be viewed as an eternal witness to what has been happening. Swami gave one example. Supposing one man is having an excruciating pain in the body. He was given an injection and he was in unconscious state. It only means he does not feel the pain, but yet complaint is there. Meaning the individual soul is at rest. It is at rest. It is unconscious. That's what Bhagavan said. Swami, one doubt. What is it? What is Brahma? Illusion. What is that which is not an illusion? What is an illusion? What is not an illusion? Please let me know. Swami, shall I say what all I see is illusion? Shall I say what all I do is Maya? What is it? If I want to have same experience again and again, is it also Maya or imagination or Brahma? That's what I asked. Here comes Swami's answer. Everything is Brahma, illusion, that's all. Repetitive or not repetitive. Everything is illusion. Everything is your imagination. That's all. All your experiences are an illusion only. Nothing is an eternal truth. No. Swami, is that so? I have some experiences in the waking state. I have some experiences in my dream also. Shall I say they are also an illusion? Imagination? Yes, everything is imagination. The waking state in Sanskrit is called Jagrat. The dreaming state is called Swapna. Deep sleep is called Sushupti. all the experiences in these three states of consciousness, they are an illusion, delusion, imagination. Nothing truth about it. That's what Bhagavan has said. Swami, I don't understand. I don't understand what you mean. I want you to give me one example so that I will be able to understand better. Swami said, all right. Supposing you are resting on your bed at home, your wife and children, they are all fast asleep, and you had a dream that night. In that dream you dreamt as if you have gone to your native place. And there, in the dream, you also dreamt all the members of your family. But actually speaking, you are here in Puttaparthi, on your bed. Your wife and children are here only. But in your dream, you have gone to your native place. And there in the dream, you have created yourself. You have created the members of your family. And all this experience is only the creation of your mind in a dream. So it's an illusion. How can that be true? Because by the time you wake up, you will understand that you are on the bed here in Puttaparthi only. So you may think of New York or Chicago. Feel as if you visited that place, but the body is here in Prasantinalaya. So all the experiences in either state, they are only illusory. That's what Bhagavan has said. Swami, in deep sleep, that is Sushupti, is there mind or not? Swami said, mind is there, but in a passive state. In a passive state. Therefore, it does not create anything. That's what it is. Then Swami, I heard there is another fourth state also. Oh, fourth state? Yes, Swami. What is it? First state is the waking state, Jagrat. Second state is dreaming state, Swapna. Third is deep sleep, Sushupti. The fourth one is Turiya, transcendental state. Turiya, higher level. Just like this thinking. Transcendental. And Baba immediately said, this Turiya transcendental is true. All the other states, they are all imaginary. They are all illusory. They are delusive. But this Turiya is ultimate, and that is true. And that you can call it the witness. This will remain as a witness to all the three other states also. Swami, I don't understand. I don't understand. Nothing is getting into my head. Will you please give me one example? Bhagavan said, you are there in the waking state. You are there in the dreaming state. You are there in the deep sleep state. You remain in the fourth state also. So you are common in all the four states. Therefore, that is truth. You are the truth. You are the truth. And Bhagavan said, simple example. Swami, you say the Turiya ultimate is a witness. How can I know that? Simple example, I don't know the serious philosophy to what extent you are following. You follow me? Please, you can be plain about it. If you want, I shall try to supplement with my own knowledge. Because this is the fundamental crux of Shankara Vedanta. The Shankara Vedanta is based on Avasthatraya, the three states of consciousness. Very important. If you understand this, you can say that you have understood Shankara Advaita, Shankara's theory of non-dualism. Let me spend few minutes on this to be thorough, because we have people who are not exposed to this school of philosophy. Not that I am an expert in it. It is only Bhagavan's grace and Bhagavan's discourses that would help me to put across the things as I know that. Supposing I play the role in a drama, one role in the first scene, another role in the second scene, another role in the third scene. Same man. First role, the role of a woman. Nice saree and all that. It's off the record. One day it so happened, Swami started distributing sarees to Anantapur girls. And one saree was remaining with him. He said, Anil Kumar, you want saree? He said, Swami, I think not for this lifetime. Not for this lifetime. Why? Why do you say that? Then I thought I should take another channel. Swami, if I wear the saree, I am more than sure I will be looking more beautiful than most of the women here. Oh, everybody burst into laughter. Because nobody would say that. Even if it's true, nobody would say that. So, in the first scene I played the role of a woman. In the second scene I played the role of a good man. In the third scene I played the role of a villain. That's an idiot. But I am the same. Woman, hero, villain. I am the same. While playing the role of a woman, I will be acting like a woman in a nice way. Walking style and all that. In the role of a hero, yes. In the role of a villain, all ferociousness, cruelty. But I am what I am. Right? Three roles are different. Similarly, waking state, dreaming state, deep sleep are the three scenes of different roles. While the fourth state, is undisturbed, unperturbed, unaffected. That remains same, runs through all the three scenes, being independent. I, Anil Kumar, is separate. But in the role of a woman, I will have all that necessary. But I am Anil Kumar, but play the role of a woman. Am I clear? In the second role, I, Anil Kumar, remain, play the role of hero. The third, I play the role of a woman. Well, I continue. Without me, you don't get another Anil Kumar to play the role of woman, do you? Because I am only acting in all the three scenes. Similarly, I, the fourth, Turiya, the ultimate, will be the basis for all the three states running through, but unaffected. Am I clear? This is Shankara Advaita philosophy, the greatest thought in Vedanta. You don't find in any school of philosophy. Even Hindus also find it very difficult to follow that philosophy. They feel like following easier past mythology story. Fine. And the devotees are busy with experiences. I was coming in a lorry. Lo and behold, Baba saved me. Very nice. It's not like that. When you go into deeper philosophy, one should have some experience about it. We cannot simply go on, get along with stories. Life is not full of stories. Life is full of realities, not stories. So, Bhagavan said, the current is there, it is the bulb that gives the light. But the current is not affected by the light. fan is there, it is the current that makes the fan revolve and you get the breeze. But the current is not affected by the breeze. Just as the current is not affected by the light, just as the current is not affected by the breeze, the eye is not affected by the experiences of the waking state, the dreaming state and the deep sleep state, and continues to be there as an eternal witness. Swami, thank you so much. How wonderfully you have explained. And the explanation, taking electricity, which we use day in and day out, has exactly suited to the context and we could follow. Thank you, Swami. You have no parallel to explain the subtleties of Vedanta in such a simple way. The suitable illustrations, you are unparalleled, you are unbeaten. Swami, one question. To be free from Brahma illusion, what should I do? It is there anyway. You say that everything is illusion. Good. How can I get out of it? How to get rid of it? That is the question. What yoga should I do? Yoga is spiritual exercise. What yaga? It is spiritual sacrifice. What should I do? Spiritual sacrifice or spiritual exercise? Yaga or yoga? Which should I follow to be free from Brahma or illusion? That is the question put to him. Swami said, see that, you may be wondering when I say, while explaining, I am saying, oh and all. Don't mistake me. Even while translating also I do these things. And I get heavily from Bhagavan. Hey, you are expected to translate. Why do you say, oh? Your business is only to translate. Swami, excuse me. I am not a simple mic to translate. I am not a simple tape recorder to do it. I also appreciate your talks. I also drink the nectar of your divine message. And I get lost. In so doing, I say, Abba. But you are losing time. And I am very fast and you are saying, Abba, and what's all this? Sorry, excuse me for this time. So I think you will also pardon me for such reasonable, tolerable omissions and mistakes on my part. This is what he said. No yaga is necessary. Spiritual sacrifice not necessary. No yoga, spiritual exercise is necessary. No. So, it is enough if you have no raga. It is enough if you have no raga. Raga means attachment. So yoga and yaga are useless. But don't have raga, the attachment, the possessiveness. Oh Swami, what a nice, very good example. And then Swami gave an example of a father and a son. Both of them are very, very great sages, par excellence. Sage Vyasa and his son Shuka. It seems his son Shuka was proceeding, walking very fast. And the father Sage Vyasa was running behind him, pleading with him, oh son, don't go, please stay with us. Oh son, don't go, stay with us. At that time, this young man, the son Sage Shuka, turned back, looked at the father Sage Vyasa and told him, look here, from the point of this body, you are the father and I am your son. But from the point of Atma, the consciousness, we have no relationship. Because same Atma in you and in me also. There is no relationship in respect of, in realms of Atma and consciousness. That's what the sage has said. See, that's beautiful thing. And further Baba said, caution. Because Hindus have got some superstitious ideas. I am not criticizing them. It is a tradition, way of life, some superstition. There is what we call Panchangam. I don't know how many of you heard of it. Panchangam, almanac, A-L-M-N-A-C, almanac. That will say the auspiciousness of every day. That will also say what are the timings when you should not do certain things, what you should do. Well, I am not very much attracted by that branch of science, though my wife has got little bit knowledge of it, and she refers to Panchangam every day, and she knows I have no faith in it. Well, I don't disturb her, and she doesn't rub her views on me. We are living in a democratic way, and and somehow 39 years of bondage or togetherness are over. Few more years, that's all, no problem. And Bhagavan said, this Panchanga almanac will never make you free from delusion. No, no, no. After all, Panchangam deals with planets, planetary conjunctions, planetary positions. I think Westerners also know this. Aries, Jupiter, Venus. You have got English names, that's all. Same. So, of course, due apologies to those who have true faith in that. There is, excuse me. Now, Swami said, the planets mentioned in the Panchangam almanac are like walls. The walls separate. This wall separates that room from this room. So planets divide. Planets separate. Like walls. Just as walls distinguish that being dining hall, this being a kitchen, and that being like that. The planets divide. But when once you remove the walls, the whole thing will be one. So similarly, your illusion is responsible for this multiplicity or plurality or diversity. I am using many words not with the idea of exhibiting my language skills, only with the hope that I will be able to get into you, at least by one word or other. That's all. That's my struggle. That's what I always tell on Sundays also. My constant struggle is to reach you. The point should touch your heart. For that I don't mind using any number of words. So, point is, it is illusion that is responsible for this diversity, for this complexity, for this multiplicity. So, I mean, simple, one question. Yes, what is it? Swami, let me be very plain. You should excuse me for that. You said that I should not have ragam, attachment. Without attachment, can I discharge my duties? Can a mother take care of the baby without attachment? Can a teacher teach in the classroom without attachment to students? Can you run the business without attachment? Please tell me, Swami. That's what I said. Immediately came the reply, like something like an arrow shot from the bow. Sup. What did he say? Look here, do anything as your duty, not with attachment. It is your duty, that's all, not with attachment. So do not have attachment. Consider it as your duty. That will be fine. That is the prescribed thing. And then Bhagavan said, oh, without raga, attachment. If you do it as your dharma, duty, it will become yoga, spiritual exercise. What a beautiful statement, my friends. One may be housewife, one may be professor, one may be a doctor, one may be an engineer. If we do these duties without attachment, that very duty becomes yoga or a spiritual exercise. Our good Lord, what a beautiful message it is. He doesn't want us to run away from here, go to the forest, turn the body upside down and call it yoga classes. Hey, it's not that. No. Swami, I want to know who is a viragi. Viragi, raga, attachment. Viraga, detachment. Who is viragi? The detached one. Then Baba said, are you not seeing viragi right in front of you? He is totally detached. Are you not seeing detached one in front of you? Yes. You know, Anil Kumar, what happened? In the year 1972, during summer classes, mother of this body, what happened? This also is trying to act smart. Detached. So, during that year, 72, summer classes for college students from all over India assembled there. At that time, one day, in the midst of the summer classes, suddenly, Ishwaramma, the mother of Baba, died. Everybody expected that classes will be cancelled. That day will be a holiday. That the whole day they will spend in meditation, thinking of the departed soul. But Baba said, nothing doing. All classes went on as per the schedule. That's all. Why? They all came to me and asked me to cancel the classes. I said, nothing doing. She is mother of this body, that's all. And I am not the body. I am not attached to this body. How can I be attached to my mother who gave me this body? So, why do you ask me to tell you who is a viragi? Don't you see me here? That's what Bhagavan has said. Swami, anyhow, things have come this far. Sri Ramachandra cried and cried because of separation from Sita. You know the story. Is it also illusion? I want to know. Is it also illusion? Baba said, yes, it is also illusion. Why he cried, Swami? No, Sridham. He cried, he pretended to have cried. He has not actually cried. What can I say this? I can't meet Rama now and get it checked up with him. Because he himself being Rama, when he is telling, who am I to question? Swami, please explain. Hari Om Tat Sat. I don't follow. Please explain. Baba said, Sita abducted by Ravana is, what should I say, impersonification or no, another woman of the same type. Impersonation, yes. Maya Sita, impersonation. The real Sita was in the fire. And the one whom he has taken was another Sita, Maya Sita. The Sita of illusion. That's all. Impersonation. The real Sita in the fire. At the end of Ramayana, Rama could recover real Sita from the fire. So the so-called crying is only a pretension. Therefore, even Rama is also an illusion. That's what Bhagavan said. Then, Swami, is Mahabharata also an illusion? Ramayana is illusion, goodbye. Mahabharata is also illusion? What shall I say? Baba said, yes, it's also an illusion. Because that was the day of illusion, that's all. There's no question. Oh, sir. It's also illusion. And then Baba gave an instance. You know, in those days, it was the bride who selects her bridegroom. Out of so many people who come there to marry. Am I clear? That is called Swayam Vara. Swayam Vara. Self-selection. Selection of the bridegroom by the bride. Not arranged marriages as in India. Selected by the parents for the children. It is not like that. The bride is free to select. How? Not by photograph and all that. There will be a test to lift Sivadhanus in Ramayana. And in Mahabharata, there will be one fish that will be, fish here in the pond, and the reflection will be watching there. While looking there on the top, he should hit it down. It's something like that. So unless one is a victor, is a winner, he is not eligible to marry her. And the poor bride will be having a garland in her hand, watching which fellow will be successful. Soon after she realizes that fellow, come on, she'll go in garland. Now Baba said, look here, Arjuna came in the guise of a poor Brahmin. He did not come as a prince, no. Came in the guise of a poor Brahmin. But Draupadi, the bride, could know that he is not a Brahmin, that he is a king. Therefore, whatever Krishna did, it is not illusion. He is only a director. But they appear to be illusory from your point of view. Whatever Krishna is, dharma only, and never contrary to dharma of that age. Your illusion may make you mistake him. That's all. Then I said, there is no point in still arguing. Swami, I can't expect more than this from you. Because who else will you support other than Krishna? You being the Krishna, naturally will support him. I can understand. So you are the truth and we are the illusion. That's what I said. Now you understand. Swami, Krishna was partial to Pandavas. Please go through Mahabharata, you will know that. He was very partial. He did all politicking to see them win the war. Modern youth don't accept. Our grandmothers and parents will accept. But our children will say, Daddy, please stop it. Why should Krishna do all this? He was highly partial. God cannot be partial, should not be. I have put this. Swami, Krishna was partial to Pandavas. Is it justifiable for God to be like that? This is the answer. Swami said, you seem to be a fool. Of course, I know, I may not seem, I am. Why all this? Why all this? So, it may look partial, but in truth, in reality, Krishna was never partial. Baba said, before the war commenced, Dharmaja, the eldest of Pandavas, comes forward. He touches the feet of Bhishma. Oh grandfather, you have taken care of us all these days. We were brought up by you. We are very grateful to you, grandfather. Pardon me for this war. I have to fight in this war. Pardon me. I am touching your feet for your permission. Do you know what Bhishma said? Dharmaja. Where there is dharma, there is going to be success. I bless you. That's what he said. Then Dharmaja went to his teacher, Drona. He touched his feet. Oh sir, you taught us all this archery. I am going to fight now. I want your blessings and permission. Then Drona said, look here, my dear son. Where there is dharma, there is Krishna. Where there is Krishna, there is success. Don't worry, you'll be successful. Go with my blessings, said Dronacharya. Therefore, why do you say Krishna is partial to them? Drona blessed them. Bhishma blessed them. They always followed the path of dharma. Therefore, they won the battle at the end. That's what Bhagavan said. Bhagavan continued further and he said, all Kauravas died in the battle. Krishna went to the mother of Kauravas by name Gandhari to console her. But this Gandhari, the mother of Kauravas, starts asking Krishna, oh Lord, are you happy now? You are very partial to Pandavas. You are responsible for the death of my sons. Are you happy? What kind of God you are? She went on speaking like that, mother after all. Krishna started speaking to Gandhari like this. Oh Gandhari, why do you cry? In fact, your husband Dhritarashtra is not eligible to be the king of this kingdom. Because your husband is born blind. A blind man cannot be the king. But he served as the king this long, though he has no right. And you also followed the footsteps of your husband. Because your husband is born blind, you have blinded your eyes by tying up a cloth. So, with the result, you have not seen your own children. Your children have not been blessed by you. How do you expect they will be blessed by outsiders? Children who could not receive the blessings of the mother, how do you expect them to receive the blessings of God? You are mistaken. That's what Krishna said. Everybody were very much touched when Bhagavan narrated this instance from Mahabharata. And Baba gave one example here. It seems, a small story. It is a blind fellow had a child. And this blind man's wife had to go to work. While going to work, the wife told her blind husband, look here, I am going. If the child cries, please feed the child with milk. The fellow is being blind. He said, what milk? How does it look? And then wife said, don't you know? That which is white is milk. Oh, I see. What do you mean by white? Because he is a blind fellow. What is whiteness? And the wife said, like a crane. Oh, what is a crane? And then wife started acting like this. The fellow is blind. Everybody laughed. With the hands bent in the form of a crane, she started giving these indications to blind husband. So it is like this. Therefore, the blind king Dhritarashtra knows the truth, but he did not follow the truth. And something like a person who is totally drowned cannot speak. So similarly, Dhritarashtra is totally drowned in the water of attachment. So he could not speak. Then I said, Swami, how nicely you have spoken about truth. Nobody can speak of truth like you, because you are Satya Sai Baba. Satya is truth. Swami, how to practice this truth? I want to know. Truth is great. You have explained wonderfully. It's all right. How to practice truth? That is my question. Then Baba said, very simple. Oh, I see. How, Swami? Just as 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Definite. Truth is also so simple. Definite. There is no confusion here. There is no ambiguity here. You can follow straight away. That's what Bhagavan has said. And in the meantime, Swami casted his looks on the devotees for a short while and looked at us and said, see, 71 devotees from Russia are here. Watch them from here, how they are. They all sat there with full concentration, thinking of Swami only. You watch them. About 71 from Russia are here. You watch them. Boys, you do not know. There are number of devotees in Russia today. Most of them have Baba's photos in their offices and in their houses. That's what Bhagavan said. Then I said, Swami, just as you did as Shirdi Sai, tying up a thread to the feet of a parrot, driving, drawing, pulling towards you, you have pulled all your devotees to your lotus feet from all over the world. So Swami's teachings that day seems to be full of philosophy, in depth, in all seriousness. And then Swami usually sits on the revolving chair, as you know. It starts revolving. Suddenly, he called 3 foreigners, boys, to come close to him. They came, jumping. See, the fellows really very interesting to note. They come from long distance, full of devotion to Swami. When Swami calls any foreigner, I feel like taking video photograph of every fellow. Full of happiness, 1,000 candle bulbs. 1,000 flowers. Started jumping like that, really. It's not easy thing. It's not easy thing. It's so nice because when Swami calls them for interview, I sit there usually, you see me. These people go there. Yes. So happy. So Swami called the boys. They started jumping like a lamb almost. And then Swami asked them, where do you come from? He knows, for us to know. And they said, Mexico, Swami. Mexico. Oh, I see. What are you doing there in Mexico? Swami asked. What are you doing, boy? Electronic engineer. Boy, what are you doing? Running business, Swami. Oh, business? Oh, you, boy? I'm professor in Mexico, University of Mexico. Oh, I see. Boys, what do you want? Come on, ask me, I'll give you. Three boys. And though I say boys, they're grown up, you must have understood. Because no one wants to be called elderly gentlemen. All are boys after all. Particularly in front of Swami, we are kids after all. It doesn't matter. And you know what they said? What do you want, I'll give you. They said, Swami, we want you. We want you. They said in one voice. Then Swami said, when are you going? When are you going back to Mexico? April 25th, Swami. Then why are you here? Why have come here? And the professor from Mexico, one of the three boys said, Swami, we want to spend our vacation with Swami. We want to spend our holidays with Swami, so we have come. Then Swami said, all right, you go and sit. And told them, I'll call you tomorrow. Be ready, I'll call you. Then when Swami said, I'll call you ready, I should tell you, the chaps did not walk, I tell you. They started floating. It's an education to watch. Yes, I was very happy. And then Swami looked at us and said, see those foreigners? How happy they are. Look at their faces. All the smiling faces. See? And these foreigners spend their time most usefully here in Prashantilayam. Oh boys, you know, after bhajans they all go there, sit in circles, they discuss Sai message, they sing, they practice bhajans, they spend time very usefully, some meditate, all that. You should know these things that Bhagavan said. In the meantime, Swami looked that side and called one boy, come here. Boy, what are you doing? Swami, PhD. Doctorate? Yes, Swami. I see. What is your subject? Value-based society, Swami. Oh, value-based. Then I took the chance immediately. Swami, one doubt. In fact, he was talking to him. But I came in the middle. Because that fellow may not ask Swami. Swami may leave there and we will not come to know these facts. If he doesn't like it, at the most he will say, shut up, sit down, time up. That's all. Doesn't matter what is there. If I get some information, it's worth it. So, Swami, I have one doubt. He said, yes, what is it? What are individual values? What are social values? What are spiritual values? Individual values, social values, spiritual values. Are they complementary or are they contradictory? I want to know. Baba said, those which do not change, which will remain permanent over ages. The values of the past and the present and future, they are the fundamental values. They are the spiritual values. The values that change from time to time, depending upon the norms, customs and the practices of the society, that is social values. While the individual conduct, the individual behavior to be practiced by every individual for the progress and advancement of the individual and also as a contributor to the society for its welfare are the individual values. That's what Bhagavan said. Swami, it's very interesting. You know, Bhagavan said, clouds come and vanish, but the sky remains all it is. There may be the pot and a lid, but they are made up of clay only. Similarly, spiritual values establish the undercurrent of continuity, of unity in diversity in society. That's what it is. Spirituality, spiritual values, will never lead to diversity, will never lead to plurality. Unity is the theme and the aim of spiritual values, Bhagavan said. In the meantime, music started. Bhagavan got up from the chair, holding the red robe with one hand, with a beautiful smile on both sides, started walking slowly, gently, majestically towards the bhajan hall. Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सच्चाई बाबा जी की।